Have you ever stopped and thought to yourself, I want to go out and spend an extra $500 on 45 megahertz? Because I certainly haven't, that's for sure. I've never thought that I want to go out and pay $5,000 Australian dollars for 45 megahertz. The graphics card is exactly the same. There's no difference except for a slight bump in clock speeds and a bump in power consumption, which when it comes to gaming, and we'll talk about why in today's video, these overclocked models on RTX 4090s are completely useless in my opinion. But first of all, we're going to pull up the worst example I can find here, and that is in Australia with the RTX 4090. The MSRP, or the starting from price, was 2,959 Australian dollars, which if you convert that money into United States dollars and even add in 10% sales tax, which is what Australians pay on goods like a 4090, it's still coming under that $2,959 Australian price tag. So what is going on here? Well, this is a case of trying to capitalize on the hype of a launch and then trying to charge the end user stupid amounts of money, trying to play off their impulse and hoping that they'll want to buy one straight away rather than later. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about what I'm calling the OC scam and how you can avoid it. So let's get straight into that right after this sponsor spot.
Never pay full price for Windows 10 or 11 again. With today's video sponsor, SCD Keys, you can get activated for as little as $15 using that coupon BFTYC. Links in description below.
Welcome back to Tech Yes City, and the first example we had there was the tough gaming. That was the worst example I could find because it was literally a small setting. That's all they're changing. The memory speeds were the same, the cooler was the same, everything looked the same except a little bit of print on the box. The next example we are going to pull up here is the Gigabyte OC versus the WindForce. Here there's about a $300 Australian difference. However, at least with the Gigabyte OC model, they are putting some LEDs on the fans. So at least you're getting some kind of, I do laugh here because LED fans are not worth anywhere near $300, but at least they're providing something different to what Asus is doing with the tough gaming OC on their card. So in this case, you also get a slight clock speed bump over the default boost clocks on the normal models, but in the end, it's still the same scenario. And in fact, when it comes to Australia, at this 2,959 starting from price, I could only find one retailer that had the Gigabyte WindForce on pre-order. But then a day later, that pre-order ran out, so you couldn't get the graphics card at that price. And there's only these overpriced models that are left on the shelves. However, this is the thing about the RTX 4090. It was coming in at a price point that I found bearable at $15.99 USD. For me personally, I wouldn't really entertain paying any more for this card, especially because the OC models aren't giving you any benefit when it comes to gaming. Usually in the past, I've never had a problem with OC models. They usually cost a little bit more, but they can give you anywhere up to 10% increase in performance and use a bit more power. But in this case, at least from the testing I've done here with OC model versus a reference model, you are going to be CPU bound. In other words, you just can't get any more frames, even if you wanted to, at 4K, the max resolution that a lot of gamers are going to be playing at with an RTX 4090. On top of that, even if you manage to get more FPS out of the title, you're going to be doing so at the expense of a lot more power consumption, at least with what I've tested with an OC model. So it's just not worth it in my opinion to even buy an overclocked model this time around because the power usage, at least in absolute terms, makes it undesirable. Though if you want to see more information about this, I did a dedicated video on undervolting. I'll put the link up here where I explain it and show tests a little bit more in depth. However, going back to talking about these OC model graphics cards, in Japan, I like to check the prices and what retailers are doing here also. And then on launch day, there were a few models that were available for the MSRP price tag of basically 2,000 yen under Sanjuman. So basically coming in at even a higher price than what they are in Australia, even if you add on the 10% sales tax. However, at least in Japan, they only want to rip you off a little bit over $150 US, versus in Australia, they're trying to rip you off $315 US for this particular model. However, while I was looking into the Japanese market more, I found two more things, one of them which is very concerning, and that is some of the retailers are saying that they've sold out of all the RTX 4090s, but then they're trying to put those RTX 4090s in overpriced gaming PCs. For instance, this one retailer called Softmap, they want to charge you Rokujuman, which is about $4,000 US, and you get a 4090 and a 12900F. Now, Alder Lake is already coming out of date. Raptor Lake is releasing later this year, but then you get these basic specs that you know nothing of. So retailers will definitely try and clean up off this launch any way possible. So if you see these ridiculously expensive gaming PCs, just sort of piece them out and know what you could build this PC for yourself and try not to get ripped off in this way. Because at $15.99 USD, I had a really tough time recommending this card. Usually I would never entertain a graphics card at this price point, but the RTX 4090, it did deliver, and it did so with a lot of hype and a lot of chart topping numbers. And it also provided very low noise, low temperatures, actually really good power efficiency for what it was. And that's the problem. A lot of retailers know that, and so they're going to try and play off that hype any way possible with OC models and overpriced PCs. And so going forward, if you guys are thinking about getting an RTX 4090, for me personally, I wouldn't even entertain the idea of paying any more than that $1,600 USD. I think that's enough for a graphics card. If you're going to pay more than that, it's going to be at the detriment of not only feeding the beast, but also maybe in the future, you could use that money for something else. However, there will be some models out there that do come over that $15.99 price point, and they do have good value add, in my opinion. For instance, we recently checked out Colorful's Vulcan OC, and it came with a very useful LED screen. It came with a better cooler than the Founders Edition, as well as having a dual BIOS button, which you could set different profiles, especially if you've got Afterburner installed and you want to play around with a few different profiles and link that to that dual BIOS button at the back. Also, it came with a GPU sag bracket, a screwdriver, pair of gloves, and it just made it in general that you're paying that extra $170 US, but you were getting something extra over their baseline $15.99 model. Though, if you do know of any more examples, be sure to share them in the comments section below. There's nothing worse than getting scammed or getting ripped off. In this case, it's basically almost scam worthy, especially in Australia with this tough gaming edition versus the OC edition. You're getting nothing more in my opinion. In fact, you're probably getting a worse card with the OC, given that it's going to use more power out of the box. So I just think that's ridiculous, and I think it's the worst of the examples I showed here. But also, when we look at what's happening in Japan, it's even happening in Australia too, retailers trying to overcharge for these models based around the day one hype. And from what I'm hearing from early reports of retailers, this card either sold anywhere from average to very strong. So there was a bias in favor of very strong sales this time around. So Nvidia definitely know how to make a product launch and make it do well. And so this time around, I'm surprised, given the price tag, given the economic environment, they can still sell like they do. But that said, I want to let you guys know there will be cards in at that $15.99 price tag. There will be. Don't entertain these higher prices, especially if there's no value add for those graphics cards. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous trying to charge this kind of money for a GPU when it's already a high price to begin with. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, sure to smash that like, and also let us know in the comment section below what you think of this whole OC crap that's going on right now. I definitely don't like it, especially after testing out the OC versus a reference model, and it's, yeah, there's nothing there. There's nothing there, especially 500 Aussie dollars. Love reading those thoughts and opinions as always, just like this question of the day here, which comes from Guy Doobie, and they ask, nice video. How did you get that Nvidia control panel in dark mode though? So basically what we did for that was we just inverted the video in post editing just because it was just easier to read. And in fact, once I read that comment, I'm actually going to directly email Nvidia and say, hey, can you update in the driver set dark mode for the control panel? I think that would be a bit of cool feedback, something I'd like to see, because I like using Windows in dark mode whenever I can. It's just easier on the eyes, and I've gotten used to it, so that's just my usage experience. If you guys would like to see a dark mode as well, do let us know in the comments section, and I'll try and do my best to say, hey, people want it, do it. So anyhow, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. If you stayed this far, you know what to do, and peace out for now.